Hi everyone, welcome back. In this lesson we will focus on basic strategies and various approaches that are relevant and useful for beginners. First, we'll start off with some pre-entry considerations. Before entering any trade, it is important to consider a number of factors such as the overall market environment or the market structure, what's going on at that particular moment, the asset price history of whatever asset you're looking to trade, Bitcoin's price action at that time. What is Bitcoin currently doing? The S&P 500 price action. In our correlation section, we discuss a lot of the correlations between Bitcoin and other asset classes, including Bitcoin and the S&P 500. We'll touch upon that briefly here, but for more in-depth discussion on asset correlations, be sure to follow up on that lesson. And other macroeconomic factors that we may want to consider. So the first thing we want to consider is identifying our environment. Now, the market environment refers to the state of the market or the asset class at the time of the trade. And when it comes to crypto, the big question is, what is Bitcoin doing? And as a result, we may also want to consider what is the S&P 500 doing and look for Bitcoin to S&P 500 or SPX correlations. Once again, we're not going to go too much into that, but that's another step ahead to consider. We also want to consider the general market structure of the asset. Is the asset in an uptrend or is it in a downtrend? Are we seeing these consecutive higher highs and higher lows, indicating that prices are generally trending up? Or are we seeing a downtrend where prices are generally going downwards? We also want to consider what are the nearby support and resistance levels. Is price heading to one of these levels? Could we potentially see a breakout, or is it more likely that we'll probably stay in the range and be rejected? Maybe support will hold, or maybe the resistance will hold where price won't go beyond that level. We also want to consider, how is the asset performing in the larger time frames? How's it performing on the weekly, the daily? Start from the higher time frames and work your way down if necessary. One possible way you could do that is to start with the weekly chart, then move to the daily chart, then the 8-hour chart, then the 4-hour chart, then the 1-hour chart, etc. This is not a set in stone formula. You don't have to follow it exactly like this, but taking a top-down approach to analysis can be useful if you're working your way from these larger time frames and working your way down or inward towards these smaller time frames. That way you see these smaller time frames through the perspective of what's going on in the larger time frames. And just as we discussed in our time frames video, the larger time frames will typically have more dominance and more say in the overall ebb and flow and direction of the market. We also want to consider, is the coin a part of an ecosystem or family of related coins? And also, how are they doing? We might want to consider Bitcoin being the leader of cryptocurrency, the crypto sector as a whole. Ethereum will follow Bitcoin. Now, if we're looking towards Ethereum, we can also consider coins that are a part of the Ethereum ecosystem or related to Ethereum, such as Matic, Uniswap, possibly Chainlink, Aave, Maker, Kyber Network. These are all coins that have some sort of relation to Ethereum, and as a result, when Ethereum is moving in a certain direction, these coins will typically follow in its direction as well. We also want to keep an eye out for any fundamental announcements or changes, right? If there is some sort of shift in the blockchain or shift in the coding, or maybe there's something going on with the development team, or maybe there is a recent hack or some sort of shift to a migration of nodes, or they're adding some sort of new protocol. These are all things that we do want to stay somewhat understanding of, even if we're not necessarily trading directly off the fundamentals itself. Even if we're just a technicals trader, we just want to focus on the chart, we do want to have a basic understanding of what's going on fundamentally with the coin that we're trading. Is there anything that may cause the trade to either go in my preferred direction or cause it to go against my preferred direction? We want to be aware of all variables as best as we can. Within that, we also want to look for multiple areas of confluence. We want to see multiple levels of confluence or agreements in the market that suggests price will go in a certain direction. One thing we might want to consider is if price is at a level of support. Now, within that, is price at a level of support? Is price or general market structure directed upwards? Are we seeing these ascending highs and ascending lows? If we're using indicators, are they suggesting that price will move to the upside, right? We want to look at the asset on multiple angles and see if these different indications, whether it's price or volume, market structure, certain indicators, if they all agree that something will happen and that signs are pointing towards a certain direction. The more levels of confluence we can find, the better. We can also consider it in reverse. If price is at a level of resistance, is the market structure generally pointed downward? If we're using indicators, are there signs that price will move to the downside? Well, if price is at a level of resistance, the market structure is generally pointed downward. The indicators are maybe the RSI is pointing some sort of bearish divergence, and price is at this level of resistance. That's probably a good sign to short the market. Price will probably come down. Price will probably be rejected at that level of resistance. And once again, we want to look for multiple levels of confluence, multiple levels of these indicators and signs pointing in the same direction. The main idea is to build your argument for why price could move in a direction, and it's really best advised to not trade off of one form of analysis or one indicator alone. You want to support your trade idea, build your argument, build your case.